The day Tiago Valverde's life changed forever began like any other. The sun was beating down on the city's main square. The air smelled like freshly baked bread, cheap coffee, and roasted corn. Vendors shouted their offers, children ran after soap bubbles, pigeons fought over breadcrumbs. Everything was full of color and movement. Everything, except Tiago Sep's world. Sitting on an iron bench, in a light suit and dark sunglasses far too elegant for a 10-year-old boy, Tiago held his white cane between his hands. He rested it on the ground as if it were an anchor. His head was slightly tilted up, listening to the sounds of the square with the focus of someone who has gotten used to building images only through sound. The driver had walked away for a few minutes to get the car from the parking lot. Marcelo Valverde, his father, had left him there for a moment, sure nothing could happen to him. The area was full of cameras, private security guards, and people who knew the Valverde surname. Tiago was used to being surrounded by people and still feeling alone. He heard laughter nearby, hurried footsteps, the crunch of bags, a dog barking. Every sound was a spark in the thick darkness where he had lived for as long as he could remember. Sometimes he imagined that darkness was a closed room. Other times, a bottomless sea. That morning, without knowing why, he felt more restless than usual. There was something different in the air, as if the square were holding its breath. That was when he heard her for the first time. A soft, clear voice, sweet and at the same time firm. A voice that did not speak to him with pity or with fear. "May I sit here?" Tiago flinched a little. He was not used to strangers talking directly to him. Most people murmured around him, but few actually addressed him. "Sure," he answered, barely lifting his chin. "This bench is not mine." He heard the faint sound of bare feet touching the ground, and the metallic creak when someone sat down beside him. He noticed that detail immediately. He had not heard the tapping of shoes, only the caress of skin on the hot concrete. "My name is Lena," the voice said. "Lena Morales, and you?" Tiago hesitated only a second. "Tiago," he murmured. "Tiago Valverde." She stayed silent for a moment, as if tasting the surname. "Valverde," she repeated. "Sounds like important people." "That is what everyone says," he replied with a tired smile. "Sometimes I think the surname weighs more than I do." Lena let out a small laugh, a clean laugh, without mockery. Tiago did not hear the usual tone of morbid curiosity in her voice. He did not hear that heavy compassion that suffocated him when adults said "poor boy." He just felt her there present, as if she were actually seeing him. Even though he could not see her. "You cannot see, right?" Lena asked gently, without beating around the bush. Tiago felt the old reflex of wanting to get defensive, but the way she said it disarmed him. "No," he answered honestly. "I have been blind since I was little, and I always will be. That is what they say." She did not ask what had happened or mention doctors or treatments. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Not my eyes," he clarified. "What hurts is knowing that everyone sees something I will never get to know." Lena turned her face toward him. Tiago did not see it, but he felt it as if a current of air had shifted only on her side. "I see things other people do not see," the girl murmured. Tiago smiled, thinking she was talking about imagination. "You mean fantasy?" "No," she answered, with a seriousness that did not match her childish voice. "I mean when I touch people, sometimes I feel things, as if I could look inside." He frowned. "That sounds weird." Lena shrugged. "Maybe it is. At the children's home where I live, they say I am crazy, or blessed, depends on the day." "You live in a children's home?" Tiago asked, surprised. "Yes, Casa Amanecer. It is big old, and it always smells like reheated soup, but at least it is a place. The millionaire's son, and the girl with no shoes. Two worlds that in theory should never cross. And yet there they were, sharing the same bench and the same patch of shade." He decided to trust that moment. "And what do you feel now?" Tiago asked, trying to sound curious and not desperate. Lena watched him. Her dark eyes traced the boy's face, the huge sunglasses, the tense jaw, the way he gripped the cane. "I can know if you let me touch you," she said. Any other adult would have been alarmed. They would have thought of diseases, danger, superstition. Tiago, used to being protected from everything, hesitated. But that morning he was tired of living inside a circle of fear. "All right," he whispered. "Touch me." Lena slowly raised her hand and placed it on his. Her fingers were thin, rough, but warm. Tiago felt a small shiver, like when a window opens and fresh air comes into a room that has been closed for years. For a second, Lena closed her eyes. She did not see images, she did not see organs or nerves, but a strange pressure gathered in her chest. It was as if something in Tiago were stuck, trapped behind thick doors. "Your eyes are not dead," she suddenly said. He laughed, short, without joy. "Every doctor says the opposite." "I do not care what they say," she replied. "They are not dead, they are locked up." Tiago did not know what to answer. Lena moved her hand away for a moment and then gently brought her palm to his face. "May I touch your eyelids?" she asked, with a delicacy no one had ever had with him. Tiago swallowed. "If this makes the driver come running back and my dad scold me all month, it will be your fault," he said, trying to joke. Lena smiled. He did not see it, but he heard it in her voice. "I promise I will not hurt you," she said. "Just trust a little." The words hit him straight in the chest. Just trust a little. No one had asked him that in years. Everyone assumed he was the one who had to be protected, cared for, guided. No one asked him to trust. Everyone took for granted that he was the weak one. "All right," he agreed. "I trust you." Lena rested her fingertips on Tiago's eyelids. His skin was warm. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. At the touch, a strange sensation ran through the girl's body, like a soft current rising from her hands to her head. It was not pain. It was not fear. It was as if someone had turned on a light inside her. She noticed something. She did not know how to name it. It was not a physical film or a membrane. It was more like a deep tension, a kind of knot that connected his forehead, temples, and eyelids. "Here," she murmured, pressing gently on a point near his eyebrow. "And here," she added, touching his temple. And behind this, Tiago felt an intense tingling, as if a part of him that had always been asleep were beginning to wake up. "What are you doing?" he asked in a thread of a voice. "I do not know," Lena answered honestly. "I am just following what I feel." Her fingers moved with a precision she had not learned from any book. She pressed, released, slid, as if her hands remembered something her mind did not know. Inside her a single idea repeated. "Set him free." Suddenly Tiago felt a slight sting, not of pain, but of released pressure, like when you open a window in a hot room. A flash. Small, distant, almost imperceptible, but it was there. He froze. His heart pounded in his chest. "Wait," he whispered. Lena pulled her hands away. "Did I hurt you?" Tiago did not answer right away. His eyelids were trembling. "I felt something," he finally said, his voice breaking. It was like a spark, as if someone had lit a match in the middle of the night. Lena pressed her lips together. "This is not going to happen all at once," she murmured, "but something that has been locked up for a long time already moved." "How do you know?" he asked. "Because I felt it too," she replied. A few meters from the bench, a man in a dark suit watched the scene with a tense jaw. Marcelo Valverde was not at all calm seeing his son sitting next to a barefoot girl, in an old dress, with her hair half tied up. His first impulse was to go and pull her away from him, but something in Tiago's posture stopped him. He saw him lean toward her. He saw him smile, and that was strange. He had not seen his son smile like that in months. Marcelo took a step toward them just as Tiago lifted a trembling hand to his sunglasses. "Lena," he murmured, "do you think I could really see something?" "I do not know how much, or how, or when," the girl replied, "but I know today is not just any day." He took a breath. "Then I want to try." He took off his sunglasses in public for the first time in many years. His eyes, dull and used to darkness, were exposed to the midday sun. Lena placed her fingers on his forehead again. She pressed the same points. She closed her eyes and focused until breathing hurt. And then it happened. At first it was only a blinding, diffuse light, as if everything were white. Tiago blinked hard, his eyes watering. Instinct told him to close them, but he forced himself to keep them open. He had waited too many years to give up in the first second. In the middle of the light, something began to take shape, a dark outline, a contour, a shadow in front of him. Lena. He saw her blurred, but he saw her. He saw her messy hair, the outline of her face, the worn fabric of her dress. He saw that she was barefoot. "Light," he whispered, his lips shaking. "I see light, I see a figure, I see you." The words came out like a strangled shout. The world stopped. Lena pulled her hands away, frightened. She bit her lower lip. "Do you really see me?" she asked, her voice on the verge of tears. Tiago nodded. tears running down his cheeks. Not clearly. It is like everything is water. But I know you are there. I know it. At that exact moment, Marcelo reached the bench. What are you doing? He roared, grabbing his son by the shoulders. Tiago, put your glasses on right now. Dad, wait, the boy said, trying to grab his father's hand. I can see something. I can see a little. Marcelo was not listening. Fear blurred his reason. Who are you? He snapped at Lena, with a hardness that made her shrink. What did you do to my son? Lena stepped back, not knowing whether to run or stay. I did not hurt him, sir, she murmured. I only touched his eyes. He wanted me to. Marcelo felt anger rising in his throat. That poor girl had dared to touch the most fragile thing in his life, his son, his only light. Tiago, we are going to the hospital right now, he ordered, putting the glasses back on him. And you, he pointed at Lena, do not you ever come near him again. Dad, do not talk to her like that, Tiago begged. She helped me. You do not understand. Marcelo was not ready to understand anything. The only thing he knew was that his son's blindness had been a pain haunting him for years, and that something had happened there in front of his eyes, something he did not control. He grabbed Tiago by the arm and forced him to stand up. Lena watched them walk away among the noise of the square. She felt a stab in her chest, a mix of fear, sadness, and strange relief. She was left alone in front of the bench, her hands still trembling. She did not know that, in that moment, she had changed the fate of 3 lives. Nor that, from that day on, her name would be both a wound and a hope in the heart of the Valverde family. She only knew that something inside her had gone dim, and something inside Tiago, for the first time, had begun to turn on. The ride to the hospital was a whirlwind. Tiago sat in the back seat of the black car, glasses back on his face and his hands clenched into fists. Even so, light slipped in through the cracks, playing with his newly awakened sight. He could not see clearly. Everything was blurry, too bright, as if the world were covered in fog. But compared to the absolute darkness where he had lived, that fog was a miracle in itself. Dad, he said in a trembling voice, I am not imagining this. Marcelo clenched his jaw while the driver sped through the streets. We are not going to discuss that in the car, he replied, trying to stay cold. The doctors are going to examine you. They will say what is going on. And what if what is going on is something good? Tiago insisted. Marcelo did not answer. His fingers dug into the leather seat. What terrified him was not the possibility that it was bad. What terrified him was that it might be good, and that he would not have any logical explanation for it. When they arrived at the private hospital, the doors swung open. The staff knew them. The Valverde family was one of the main donors.
In a matter of minutes,
Tiago was in a white room, surrounded by machines and doctors in immaculate coats. Dr. Esteban Núñez, the ophthalmologist who had seen him since childhood, came in with a frown. Mr. Valverde, he greeted professionally. I was told it was urgent. Marcelo pointed at his son. Something happened, doctor, he said tensely. My son says he can see. The doctor raised his eyebrows. That is not possible, he answered almost by reflex. The last time I examined him, optic nerve atrophy was clear, and the chance of recovery was 0. Tiago lifted his head. I do not know how to explain it, doctor, he said. But it is not all dark anymore. There is light, I see shadows, I see shapes. Give me a sheet of paper, a pen. I can draw something. The doctor hesitated. Part of him wanted to tell him not to get his hopes up. Another part, the part that still remembered why he had become a doctor, felt a prickle of genuine curiosity. All right, he conceded. First, let us examine your eyes. The next hours were a parade of tests, flashlights shining straight into his pupils, machines moving close to his face, drops that burned, scans, retinal studies, exams Tiago already knew by heart, but that time they felt different. Because now, behind every light they shined at him, he saw something, little, blurry, incomplete, but something. When they finally let him rest on a stretcher, Marcelo remained standing beside him, arms crossed. Today in the square, Tiago said, breaking the silence, a girl touched my eyelids. Her name is Lena. She said she could see things inside. And then I felt a spark, and after that, light. Marcelo closed his eyes for a moment. I do not want you to mention that girl again, he replied. Not her name, not anything she said. Why? Tiago asked, hurt. Because I am not going to let the responsibility for your health hang on a stranger, he answered. You do not know who she is. You do not know what she did. I know what I felt, the boy insisted. For the first time it was not only darkness. At that moment, Dr. Nunez came back in, followed by 2 other specialists. The expression on his face was not that of a calm man. Mr. Valverde, he said, adjusting his glasses. I need you to listen to me calmly. Marcelo felt his stomach clench. Tell me straight. The doctor looked at Tiago and then at the father. The tests do not match what we have seen in him for years, he said slowly. The reaction of his pupils to light has changed. The retina responds. There is activity where before there was none. Marcelo was speechless. Are you saying my son can see? Tiago asked before he could. I am saying that, medically, today his eyes are working in a way that months ago we would have considered impossible, the doctor answered. I want to be cautious. Your vision is partial, blurry, but it is real. Marcelo looked at him as if he had spoken in another language. That cannot be, he murmured. You yourself said there was no going back. I said that based on the studies back then, Nunez replied. Today if someone showed me only these results and I did not know your history, I would say your eyes are recoverable. One of the other doctors, a middle-aged woman, added in a low voice. What happened here does not have a simple explanation from science. We do not know any treatment capable of causing this kind of change so fast. Not here, not anywhere in the world. Tiago clasped his hands. So, doctor, he asked, is this a miracle? The word hung in the air, heavy, uncomfortable. Nunez held it for a few seconds, and then nodded slightly. I am not religious, he said honestly. But as a doctor, I can tell you that what I see in your eyes does not fit any known protocol. If there is a word for something science cannot explain yet, maybe that is the closest one. Marcelo felt the floor shift. It is not possible, he insisted. There has to be another explanation, an error in the previous tests, a condition we did not see. Something. We checked everything again, the woman doctor answered. The tests from months ago were solid, and these are too. It was not a mistake. Tiago turned his face toward where he guessed his father was. Dad, he whispered, I told you the truth. Marcelo rested a hand on the stretcher. He needed a few seconds to find a chair and sit down. And the girl? Dr. Nunez asked carefully. A nurse told me you mentioned that someone touched your face in the square. Lena, Tiago answered, with a mix of excitement and tenderness. Lena Morales. She had the calmest voice I have ever heard. She said she could see things inside. She touched my forehead and everything started. Marcelo tensed. She was just some girl, he cut in, brusque. Probably dirty from the street. Let us not pay attention to those fantasies. The doctor looked at him seriously. Mr. Valverde, to you she may be some girl, but if what she did coincided with this change in your son's vision, even if we do not understand how, we cannot dismiss it. Marcelo stood up abruptly. I am not going to allow you to mix science with superstition, he said coldly. My son will be treated by professionals, not by square stories. Tiago felt something break inside him. It is not superstition, Dad, he murmured. She is a person. The doctor sighed. Regardless of how it happened, Nunez continued, what matters now is taking care of this recovery. We are going to schedule visual therapy, regular checkups, tests. Tiago, you will have to be patient. Your brain is starting to process images. It never knew. It is like learning to see from zero. The boy nodded, with a weak but genuine smile. I will do whatever it takes, doctor. Anything. Marcelo walked over to the office window and looked out at the city. The buildings shone in the sun. Safe, solid, obedient to the laws of physics he thought he understood. But that day something had broken his framework. When they left the hospital late in the afternoon, Marcelo took Tiago by the arm. We are going home, he said, tired. And Lena? The boy asked. We have to find her. I have to thank her. Marcelo pressed his lips together. I will talk to the square security, he answered evasively. I will see if anyone knows her. Tiago felt it was not enough, but for the moment he had no strength left to argue. The light exhausted him. Every reflection, every shadow demanded a kind of energy he had never had to spend before. That night in the Valverde mansion, everything felt strange. Irene Duarte, Tiago's mother, listened to the story with wide eyes. She hugged her son for a long time, crying with emotion. But when Marcelo mentioned the girl from the square, her face took on the same tense expression as her husband's. "I do not want them to link him to weird things," Irene said. "The press would tear his story apart if they found out that a homeless girl touched him in a square and suddenly he can see." Tiago pulled away from her. "But that is what happened," he insisted. "We cannot erase Lena from this." Marcelo drew a breath. "Tomorrow I will go to the square," he promised. "I will talk to the shopkeepers, to the guards. I will see where that girl came from. For now, that has to be enough." Tiago looked at him through the new fog of his vision. He could not see his features clearly, but he could feel the wall of pride and fear his father raised every time something did not fit his world. "No," the boy thought, "I am not satisfied." That night, while the house sank into silence, Tiago stayed awake in his room. He sat on the edge of the bed, glasses in his hand, opening and closing his eyes, fascinated by every spark, by every line he could make out. And in the middle of the wonder, a single name pulsed in his chest. Lena. Lena Morales. The girl the world was going to try to forget. The girl he would never stop looking for. Because even though the doctors spoke of complex terms and his father of logic, Tiago knew, in the deepest place of his soul, that the first light he had ever seen in his life had not been the sun. It had been her eyes. Marcelo Valverde went back to the square the next day with an expression that mixed wounded pride and fear. It was early, but the square was already alive. Fruit stands were being set up, bread vendors opened their displays, the sound of brooms sweeping the ground filled the air. Hard to believe that the day before in that same place his son's darkness had begun to crack. Tiago walked beside him, without his cane, wearing his glasses, but standing straighter than before. He needed to lean on his father's voice to orient himself, because seeing in blur was more tiring than not seeing at all. Even so, every shadow, every glimmer, felt like a gift. "It is here," Tiago said, pointing more or less toward the bench. "I can feel it, even if I cannot see it clearly." They walked closer. The bench was there just the same, indifferent to their inner chaos. Marcelo went to the nearest stand, a big man selling oranges. "Excuse me, good morning," Marcelo said, trying to sound calm. "Yesterday on this bench, there was a girl with my son, barefoot, old dress. Her name is Lena Morales. Did you see her?" The man thought for a few seconds and shook his head. "I saw a lot of people yesterday, sir, but a girl like that, I do not remember." A woman arranging flowers on a cart turned around. "I did," she said. "A skinny girl, with her hair tied back, always sits around here. Yesterday she was with a boy with dark glasses. I thought she was his sister." "She is not my sister," Tiago jumped in. Coming closer. "She is my friend." "Well, I met her yesterday, but I need to find her." Marcelo looked at the woman urgently. "Do you know where she is from?" he asked. "Does she live nearby?" The flower seller slowly shook her head. "I only know that some afternoons, a nun from a children's home comes by and scolds her," she said. "I heard her call her Lena." "That I did hear. And once I heard her mention something like Casa Amanecer." "Casa Amanecer," Marcelo repeated. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but with money and contacts it would not be hard to find. Tiago grabbed that clue like a lifeline. "We have to go," he said. "Today." Marcelo looked at him. He saw the raw hope on his son's face. That new light in his eyes did not come only from the physical miracle, but from the hope of saying thank you. "All right," he said at last. "Let us go." Casa Amanecer turned out to be an old building on the outskirts of the city. Peeling walls, a blue gate, an inner courtyard full of hanging laundry. On the front wall, a simple hand-painted sign. Children sets home Casa Amanecer. A woman in her 50s with a tired face but a warm smile met them at the entrance. She wore a simple crucifix at her neck and a key ring full of keys. "Good morning, gentlemen," she introduced herself. "I am Sister Camila Robles. How can I help you?" Marcelo did not beat around the bush. "We are looking for a girl who we believe used to live here," he said. "Her name is Lena Morales." Sister Camila's eyes changed. They filled with an old sadness. "Lena," she whispered. "It has been a long time since I heard that name." Tiago stepped forward. "She helped me," he said firmly. "Yesterday in the square, she touched my eyes. The doctors say what happened to me has no explanation. I know it was her." Sister Camila invited them into a small office with an old desk and two mismatched chairs. Children's drawings were taped to the walls. "Lena arrived here when she was 8, The nun began. I found her at the home's door sitting with a plastic bag in her hand. Inside she had 2 changes of clothes and a notebook. No one ever came to claim her. Did she know anything about her parents? Marcelo asked. She only said that someone had taken care of her for a while, but that she had to walk alone now. Sister Camila replied. She spoke in a strange way for a child. She said things like she was waiting for her mission. Tiago felt his heart speed up. Her mission? He repeated. Yes, the nun nodded. She always said that one day she was going to help someone important. Not because of money, she would underline. Important for their own life. She spent hours sitting on the bench in the yard, listening, and when we let her go to the square with us, she stayed very still, as if she were listening to voices the rest of us could not hear.
And where is she now?
Tiago asked urgently. Can I talk to her? Sister Camila fell silent for a moment, folding her hands on the desk. I do not know, she finally replied. Lena disappeared. The word hit Tiago Capston's stomach like a stone. What do you mean disappeared? Marcelo frowned. Did you not look for her? Of course we looked, the nun said defensively. A few months ago, she started to get more restless. She said she felt the day was getting close, that soon she would meet the boy with sleeping eyes. That was the phrase she used. Boy with sleeping eyes. The day before she left, she wrote in her notebook for a long time, and the next morning her bed was empty. Did you notify the police? Marcelo asked, tense. Yes, we filed reports, called hospitals, walked around the area. No one saw her, said Sister Camila. For all practical purposes, it was as if she had vanished. But I do not think she just got lost. I think she followed what she had been repeating for years. Tiago pressed a hand to his chest. The boy with sleeping eyes, he murmured. Sister Camila looked at him gently. You were that boy, right? She asked. Tiago nodded, eyes full of tears. I think so. The nun stood up, went to a filing cabinet drawer and took out a thin, worn school notebook. When Lena left, she left this behind, she explained.
I used to read it sometimes, trying to find clues. I never found anything concrete. But maybe you will.
Tiago took the notebook with trembling hands. On the first page, in childlike handwriting it said, My diary. I write while I wait for my mission. He turned the pages. There were short entries. Today I went to the square and sat on the same bench as always.
I heard laughter and footsteps. I still do not feel him.
Today, a lady asked why I keep coming back every day. I did not know how to answer without making her think I am crazy. Today I dreamed of some eyes that were closed, but they shone on the inside. And then, on the last page, the date of the day before the miracle. Tomorrow is the day. I feel it in my chest. I am going to meet the boy with sleeping eyes. I do not know how I will help him, but I will know what to do when he is in front of me. I am not nervous. I am ready. Tiago closed the notebook against his chest. He could no longer hold back the tears. She knew, he whispered. She spent years getting ready for that moment, and I could not even say thank you. Marcelo ran a hand down his face. His pride, that armor he had always worn, began to crack. Do you have any drawing of her? Tiago asked suddenly. Sister Camila smiled sadly. She drew a lot, she said. Especially one scene she repeated over and over. It is in the room where she used to sleep. If you want, I can show you. They went up a narrow staircase to a simple room with 4 beds. On the wall, above one of them, a drawing was taped, done with colored pencils. Tiago walked up slowly. Even though his sight was still not perfect, he could make out the shapes. A boy in a light suit, sitting on a bench under a big tree. A barefoot girl, messy hair, touching his face with both hands. Tiago brought his fingers close to the paper, not quite touching it. That is me, he murmured. Marcelo looked at him, and in that moment he did not see just his son, but a boy who had been awaited by a little girl with nothing but her faith. Sister Camila nodded. Lena started drawing that scene long before she left, she said. When I asked who the boy was, she only answered, he is my future. Silence filled the room. Marcelo swallowed. Sister Camila, he said hoarsely. If you ever hear anything about her, if she comes back, if she sends a letter, anything, please call us. We will do everything in our power. The nun nodded. I will, she promised. But in the meantime, maybe the best way to honor her is to live in a way that makes her mission worth it. Tiago looked at the drawing one more time. Lena, he thought, wherever you are, I swear I will not let them turn you into background story. I am going to turn you into light for others. 10 years later, he kept that promise. The sign outside the building was new and bright. Luz Delina Foundation. Inside, the hallways were covered with murals made by children, before and after surgery pictures, letters full of scribbled thank yous. The foundation paid for eye surgeries, treatments, visual therapy for families who could never have afforded them. Tiago walked through the halls in a white coat, stethoscope hanging, tablet in hand, and that calm smile that appeared every time he saw a child take off their bandages after surgery. His own miracle had brought him there. He had become a doctor specialized in ophthalmology. Not for fashion or ego, but because every time he looked at the back of an eye, he remembered the darkness that had once filled his own. His best friend Dario Campos teased him often. "You are the weird rich guy," Dario would laugh. "All the other heirs open luxury restaurants or clothing brands. You open operating rooms." Tiago shrugged. "I guess everyone invests in what hurts them," he replied. Marcelo, now with visible gray hair, spent his days signing checks, reviewing reports, and attending meetings where he barely spoke but listened. He knew he could not erase the fear and contempt he had once felt for a girl with no shoes, but he could turn that guilt into service. One autumn afternoon, the foundation's community dining hall was packed. Huge pots of steaming soup, long tables, kids talking, women in aprons serving bread, the smell of hot food mixed with the murmur of grateful voices. Tiago was behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, serving bowls. "Do you need anything, ma'am?" he asked over and over. "More soup, some bread, water?" In the middle of that rhythm, a voice he had never heard slipped through the noise. "Careful, you are about to drop the spoon." Tiago looked down. The steel ladle was about to slip from his hand to the floor. He caught it at the last second and laughed. "Thank you," he said, without looking up yet. "I am distracted today." When he finally turned, he saw her. A young woman of about 21, thin, her hair tied back in a simple ponytail and a dark jacket that had clearly seen better days. Her hands were red from hot water and soap but moved quickly, trained by work no one notices. Her eyes were what stood out the most. Dark, deep, with a strange calm, like they had seen too much and still chose to believe. "I am the new volunteer," she said, introducing herself. "My name is Solange Rivas. They told me to talk to you to see how I can help." Tiago stared at her a second longer than normal. "Solange," he repeated, as if tasting the name. "Nice to meet you. You can help here, serving soup, if you want." She smiled and picked up another ladle. She moved naturally among the people, looking each person she served in the eye, as if she truly cared whether that plate was enough. At one point, while the noise died down a little, Solange came closer. "Sorry," she said, looking straight at him. "Can I ask you a weird question?" Tiago was surprised. "Sure." She raised a hand and pointed, without touching, at a small, almost invisible mark near his right eyelid, a tiny scar most people never noticed. "That mark," she said, "is it from birth or did they make it in a hospital?" Tiago opened his eyes a little wider. "Most people do not notice it," he replied. "It is from when I was a kid. I had several eye surgeries. None worked at the time, until—" He stopped, because that story always squeezed his chest. Solange nodded slowly, as if that pause told her more than 1,000 words. "I only asked because, when I saw you, I felt like your eyes were telling a story I'd heard before," she said with a half smile. "Do not freak out. Sometimes I say strange things." Tiago laughed, but inside something lit up. Her eyes, the way she observed, that phrase about stories she had already heard. There was something hauntingly familiar about all of it. And then he saw it. On her left wrist, almost hidden by her jacket sleeve, a woven thread bracelet in different colors, old, worn, but still holding. The colors were faded, but the same. Red, blue, yellow, green. Tiago felt time bend. Those same colors were in the drawing he had kept in a box for a decade, the drawing of a barefoot girl touching his face under a tree. He could not help staring. Solange noticed his gaze and lowered her hand, covering the bracelet a little. "It is old," she apologized, as if she had to. "I have had it since I was a child. I never take it off. It is important." Tiago swallowed. In his chest, a certainty hit hard. He did not know how. He had no proof. But a suspicion began to form, clear as the light he had seen that first day in the square. Solange Rivas was not just any volunteer. And even though he still could not prove it, a part of him knew he was standing in front of Lena Morales, the girl of the miracle. Now a woman. Tiago could not sleep that night. He stayed in his apartment, sitting on the bedroom floor, in front of a cardboard box full of memories almost no one knew about. Inside, wrapped in paper, still lay Lena's notebook and the drawing he had taken from Casa Amanecir that day. He carefully pulled them out. The paper was slightly yellowed, but the colored pencils still showed. The boy in the light suit, the barefoot girl, the tree, the bench, and on her wrist, a thread bracelet with the same colors he had seen that afternoon on Solange's arm. Red, blue, yellow, green. Tiago moved his fingers close to the drawn bracelet without touching it. 10 years, he murmured. 10 years, and you are still here. He remembered Solange's voice in the dining hall. When I saw you, I felt like your eyes were telling a story I had heard before. It was not just some phrase, it was something someone who had already known him might say. The next day he went to the dining hall earlier than usual. Solange was already there, wearing an apron, wiping down tables before people arrived. Her hair was tied back, a few strands stuck to her forehead. "Hi," he greeted her, trying to sound casual. "Did you get here very early?" She shrugged. "I do not sleep much," she replied. "Besides, I like working before there is noise. It helps me think." Tiago leaned on a nearby table. "Think about what?" Solange smiled, but her eyes grew serious. "About what I am doing here," she said. "About whether I am really useful. About whether I am running away or finally settling somewhere." Tiago felt the words hit him straight in the chest. "I could ask you the same question," he said softly. "Are you running away or are you finally staying?" She stayed quiet for a few seconds. "Depends on the day," she admitted. "Some days I feel like this is where I should have arrived a long time ago, and others I feel like grabbing my stuff and disappearing before anyone asks me too many questions." Tiago took a breath. "I have a question," he said. "One you may not like, but I need to ask it." Solange looked at him, alert, but did not move. "Ask it." Tiago pulled a neatly folded sheet of paper from the inner pocket of his coat. It was not the original, but a copy of the drawing he had had scanned years earlier so he would not ruin it. He unfolded the paper on the table. "Have you ever drawn this?" he asked. Solange looked at the paper curiously. The second her eyes landed on the drawing, her face changed. The color drained away, her hands began to tremble. Tiago did not take his eyes off her. "Do you recognize it?" he pressed. She swallowed. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "That is my handwriting. That is my drawing." Her voice broke. Tiago felt all the air vanish from the room. "Then it is you," he said. "You are Lena." She closed her eyes. "Please, do not say that name here," she begged in a thin voice. "No one has called me that in years." Tiago stepped closer, not wanting to push her but unable to walk away. "What do you want me to call you?" he asked. Solange stayed silent for a moment. "My name is Lena," she finally said. "Lena Morales. Solange Rivas is just the name I gave myself so no one would find me." The empty dining room filled with a different kind of silence. It was not awkward, it was dense, full of things finally coming into the light. Tiago sat down across from her. "What were you running from?" he asked gently. "From us." She shook her head. "Not exactly," she answered. "I was running from everything. From the police, from reports, from people looking at me like I was a walking miracle or a fraud. Do you know what happened when I disappeared from Casa Amanecir?" Tiago nodded. "Sister Camila told us they searched for you," he said. "That they called hospitals, that they treated me like a case file." She cut in, with a soft, not aggressive bitterness. "And I get it, they had to. But I did not want to be that missing girl everyone pities. I also did not want the label of saint or witch." "Then why did you leave?" he asked. Lena played with the edge of the paper. "Because that day in the square everything got too big," she replied. "Your father yelled at me, people started gathering. I felt their eyes drilled into my face. I was 11, Tiago. I got scared. Scared they would take me away from everything I knew. Scared they would use me. Scared the police would say I had hurt you. So that night I left." "Where did you go?" "Anywhere," she shrugged. "I lived on the street for a while. Then a woman let me sleep in the kitchen of a small restaurant in exchange for washing dishes. Later I got a job cleaning floors in a hospital. I never stayed long in one place. I felt like if I put down roots, someone would show up one day with a paper saying, Lena Morales, you are in trouble. Tiago listened with a knot in his throat. Did you keep that gift? He asked. What you did with me? Lena shook her head. No, she said, sadness leaking into her voice. That same night, it went out. Before, when I touched people, I felt things. I did not see images, but I sensed pain, illnesses, fears. With you it was different. With you I felt something locked up that could be opened. I did it. And afterward, silence. Nothing else. Does it bother you that you lost it? Lena thought a moment. Sometimes, she said. I wondered if I had been used and then not needed anymore. Other times I thought it was for the best. A child should not carry those things. The only thing that never changed was one thing. What? I never stopped thinking about you, she admitted. I did not know if you were okay, if you could see, if you had forgotten me. I was afraid to look for you and have you blame me for everything, or that you had turned me into a pretty story and nothing more. Tiago laughed, eyes wet. I turned you into much more than a story, he said. The foundation exists because of you. My career exists because of you. The way I see life exists because of you. You are not a pretty chapter, Lena. You are our main page, even if you did not know it. She covered her mouth with one hand, holding back a sob. Do not say that, she whispered. You do not know how long I spent telling myself I actually did nothing, that it was all coincidence, that the doctors were wrong. He leaned forward a little. The doctors were not wrong, he said. They admitted it themselves. What happened to me is not in any book, and no matter how much my father tried to deny it, I know where it all started. It started in your hands on that bench. In that moment, a deep voice came from the dining hall door, and in my fear, Marcelo Valverde was there, standing looking older, but with humbler eyes than ever. Lena stiffened. Her memories hit her all at once. The shout, the strong hand dragging her from the bench, the accusation in his gaze. She wanted to stand up and run, but her legs would not respond. Marcelo walked forward slowly, as if approaching something fragile. I did not know how you looked, he said, looking at Tiago, but not taking his eyes off Lena. I only remembered your bare feet on the hot concrete. I have seen that image in my head every night for 10 years. Tiago stood up. Dad, he said, a soft warning in his tone. Do not scare her. Marcelo shook his head. That is not my intention, he said. I already did that once. I am not going to repeat it. He walked 2 more steps and stopped in front of Lena. She did not stand up, but she lifted her gaze. There was fear, yes, but also a new strength. 10 years had both hardened and softened her. Marcelo began, his voice cracking. I do not know how to ask your forgiveness. The businessman, the tough man of numbers who always had an answer, ran out of words. Lena looked at him in silence. You do not have to, she said at last, with a calm that surprised them both. You did what any scared father would have done. I touched your son's eyes without asking you first. I understand your fear. No, Marcelo replied, with a sharp gesture. Not any father. A good father would have asked what was happening before yelling. A good man would have thanked you. I treated you like a danger when you were actually the only light that dared to get near my son. His eyes filled with tears. For 10 years, he went on, I have poured money, time, and resources into this foundation trying to make up for it, but nothing fills the hole of not having looked you in the eye that day and said thank you. What I did was wrong. It was not just fear, it was classism, pride, arrogance. And I am here to say it out loud, in front of my son and in front of you. Lena swallowed. Marcelo took 1 more step and before anyone could stop him, knelt down in front of her in the middle of the empty dining hall. Tiago covered his mouth, shocked. The image was powerful, the wealthy man in expensive suits on his knees on the floor in front of a girl with hands dried out by soap.
Forgive me,
Marcelo said, his voice broken. I cannot change the past. I cannot give you your childhood back or erase the fear you went through. If you let me, I want you to know that from today on I will not only do things in your name but with you, if you want to be here. Lena felt something break and come together inside her at the same time. She leaned forward and took his hands gently. Please stand up, she said. Do not kneel out of shame. If you are going to do it, let it be from gratitude, not guilt. I forgave you years ago, when I was still a scared child. I do not want you spending the rest of your life punishing yourself for a human reaction. Marcelo lifted his head, surprised. Do you really forgive me? He asked. Yes, she replied firmly, but with one condition. Anything, he answered without hesitation. That you stop searching for strange miracles and start seeing the simple ones, Lena said. Like the fact that your son can see and chose to use that sight to serve, like the children eating here today, like the mothers who leave this place with new hope. The biggest miracle was not me touching Tiago's eyes. The miracle is what you have done with that. Marcelo smiled, tears still sliding down his cheeks. Then I accept your condition, he said. Tiago came closer and hugged them both, unable to hold back. The three of them stayed like that for a moment, mixing stories, guilt, forgiveness, and gratitude. Later that same day, Lena and Tiago went to the foundation's small chapel. It was a simple room, with wooden benches and a plain cross on the wall. No one else was there. Lena sat down and looked at the light coming through the window. You know what is the strangest thing of all, she said, that from the day I touched your forehead, I never again felt anything weird in my hands. I no longer feel other people's illnesses or pains. It is like I was given a gift for a limited time. For a single mission, Tiago added. She nodded. And after it was done, it left, she said. That is why it does not hurt so much now that I lost it. It was for that for you. The rest, I guess I was supposed to build the normal way, studying, working, making mistakes. Tiago looked at her with a mix of admiration and tenderness that was starting to take on a different color. You have no idea how many times I imagined this moment, he confessed. In all my scenarios, you were different, more serious, more distant, angrier, and here you are with your whole story, and still willing to forgive. Lena smiled, sad and happy at the same time. I am not a saint, Tiago, she said. I was just tired of carrying hatred in my backpack. It weighs more than anything. He nodded. Stay, he asked quietly. Not as a symbol or a pretty story. Stay as a person, as part of this, as part of my life. She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. And if I am not what you expected, she asked. Even better, he replied, because the less perfect you are, the more real I will feel you. Lena laughed, and that laugh filled the little chapel with a new light. They did not say the words love, couple, destiny yet. But in that moment, something began to take root. Not in the eyes. In the heart. The following days turned into a strange mix of routine and miracle. Lena started working officially at the foundation, not as a symbol or decoration, but as a real part of the team. Marcelo insisted on signing her a proper contract with full benefits. She wanted to turn it down at first, but Tiago looked at her seriously. If we do not pay you fairly, he told her, it would be another way of using your story, and that is exactly what I do not want to do. Lena agreed, but set her own condition. Okay, she said, folding her arms, but I do not want to be in any ads. No miracle girl on billboards. If I am going to be here, it will be for what I do now, not for what happened 10 years ago. Tiago smiled. Deal. She started in the family support area.
Her work was not medical.
It was much harder. She listened to mothers who arrived crying because their children were going into surgery.
She sat with kids afraid of the darkness in the exam room.
She told them stories, made them laugh. Sometimes she just stayed in silence beside them, holding their hand. She had that invisible talent of making others feel seen. And that same talent, without meaning to, put her right at the center of a storm. It all started with a video. A mother, overflowing with gratitude because her son had been operated on for free at the foundation, posted a home video on social media. In it, her little boy hugged Lena and said, "Thank you, Miss Lena, for taking care of my mom when she was scared." The algorithm did the rest. In a few days, the video went viral. People started asking who that girl working at the Valverde Foundation was, why the kids spoke of her as if she were an angel. Then some nosy person found an old online article. Missing girl from Casa Amanecer home, presumed runaway, 11 years old. Her name was Lena Morales. The pieces came together quickly. Someone remembered the old rumor that had floated through the city for years, that the rich man's son used to be blind, that now he could see, that it all happened in a square, and that there had been a girl. A young journalist, overly ambitious and not very ethical, decided it was the perfect moment to build the full story, even if she had to fill in the gaps with imagination. Within a week, social media was full of clickbait headlines. Miracle Girl reappears. Runaway who gave Air Valverde his sight back. Dark secret behind Luz de Lena Foundation. Lena did not find out at first. She kept going from her small rented room to the foundation, from the foundation to night psychology classes, from classes to the cheap store where she bought just enough. She did not have time for social media. It was Dario, Tiago's friend, who came into the office one afternoon looking pale. "You need to see this," he said, showing Tiago his phone. Tiago read in silence. As he scrolled down, his jaw clenched. "They are using her story like a circus," he muttered, like she was some criminal resurfacing to redeem herself. Dario shook his head. "They only care about drama, not truth," he replied. "There are already reporters camped outside. They are coming for you, your dad, and most of all for her." Tiago felt a stab of anger. "Not one word," he said through gritted teeth. "Not one word, without Lena knowing everything. I am not going to talk behind her back like everyone did when she was a kid." He rushed down to the dining hall. There she was, setting plates on a table, unaware of the noise online. "Lena," he said softly, "we need to talk." She looked at him and knew, just from his face, that something was wrong. "Did something happen with the child?" she asked right away. "No," he answered. "They are fine. This time the problem is us." They went to the small meeting room and closed the door. Tiago put his phone on the table. He showed her some headlines, some comments, not the cruelest ones, but enough for her to understand. Lena read in silence. She did not blink, but her hands clamped around the phone so hard her knuckles went white. "So now I am the runaway miracle girl," she murmured. "How creative." Tiago leaned forward. "We can hold a press conference," he said. "Tell the story how it really was. Make it clear you are not an experiment, or a saint, or a criminal, just a girl who once had a gift, and used it on a blind boy." Lena shook her head. "A press conference will not erase the comments," she replied. "People believe what they want. Some need saints, others need villains. I am afraid of ending up being both at once." He swallowed his anger. "Then tell me what you want to do," he said. "Whatever you decide, we do." Lena stayed quiet. She looked at the table, at the door, at her hands. "Part of me wants to run again," she confessed. "Change my name again, disappear. That is what I have always done." "And the other part?" Tiago asked. "The other part is tired of running," she admitted. "Tired of living like I do not deserve peace just because I once touched your eyes and something happened that no one understands." Tiago breathed in. "You are not alone," he said. "Not this time." Lena lifted her gaze. Her dark eyes met his. "That is what scares me the most," she whispered. "That you will not have peace because of me." He looked at her, hurt. "Lena," he insisted, "you are not causing a problem. You are truth coming into the light. If someone is uncomfortable with that, it is their problem, not yours." She let out a short laugh. "Say it more times. Maybe I will start believing you," she murmured. That night they held a meeting in the dining hall, but with the door closed. Marcelo, Irene, Tiago, Dario, and Lena were there. No lawyers, no PR advisors, just people who in one way or another owed each other truths. Marcelo broke the ice. "The media's outside," he said. "They want a story, and if we do not tell it, they will make it up entirely. But this time I will not decide anything without hearing you first." Lena was surprised. The change in the man who had once kicked her out of the square was real. "I do not want cameras in my face," she said clearly. "I am not going to cry in front of them so they can edit my story however they want. If I am going to talk, I want to do it as part of the foundation, not as some circus act." Irene stepped in, her voice calm. "We can publish a statement," she suggested, "a clear one. With your words, no embellishments. That tells what happened from your point of view. That makes it clear you do not belong to anyone, neither to the miracle nor to the press." Dario added. "And we can tighten security," he said. "No one comes in here to film without permission. This house belongs to the children, not to the curious." Lena took a deep breath. "Okay," she agreed. "I will do something I did not do when I was a child. I will stay. I am not disappearing again. If the city wants to know who I am, then they can get to know me for what I do now, not just for what I did years ago." Tiago looked at her with a mix of pride and love burning in his chest. Marcelo nodded. "Then we will do it your way," he said. "This time, yes." The next days were controlled chaos. The foundation published a simple statement, signed by all three. By Tiago, by Marcelo, by Lena. In it, they laid out the basics. Yes, Tiago had been blind. Yes, the doctors had said there was no remedy. Yes, a girl named Lena had been with him in the square the day everything changed. But they also said something more important, that no miracle was for sale, that no one was going to turn such an intimate experience into a show, that the real story was being written every day, with each operated child, each supported family, each plate of food served. At first, like always, there was noise, people calling them liars, people calling them saints, people with opinions but no facts. But the scandal, like all scandals, slowly faded. What remained was something else. A city starting to get used to seeing Lena not as a strange legend, but as a woman who said good morning each day at the foundation's door, who got her hands messy with paint helping kids draw, who walked around in a coat holding a clipboard like any other worker. And little by little, between support sessions, laughter in the dining hall, and talks in the chapel, the affection between her and Tiago stopped being something floating in the air and turned into something that could no longer be hidden. One afternoon, leaving the foundation, they walked together to the main square. That place was no longer filled only with pain and memory. Now it was full of new promises too. The bench was still there, under the tree, and on the backrest Marcelo had had a discreet plaque placed. Here a story of light began. Lena sat down and ran her fingertips over the plaque. I never thought I would come back here holding someone's hand, she said with a small smile. Tiago sat beside her. When I was 10 and ran off in the car, he thought, one day I will come back alone and find her. I was wrong. I had to come back with you. Not to look for you, but to walk together. Lena looked at him. Tiago, she said slowly, do you realize that if you had not been blind, I would not have had a mission, and that if I had not been afraid, maybe I would never have learned to stay? He nodded. And if my dad had not yelled at you, he added, I might never have understood that money does not buy what matters most. None of us would be where we are if one single thing that afternoon had been different. She stared up at the tree leaves moving in the breeze. I do not know if I believe in written destinies, she confessed, but I do know there are encounters that are not random. Tiago smiled. I do not know if I believe in fairy tales, he said, but I do know that since I saw you again, everything feels a bit more like home. Lena closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were full of something that no longer fit in silence. Tiago, she murmured, I think it is time to say out loud what we have been saying inside for years. He felt his heart pound. I love you, Lena, he said, no detours, not because of the miracle, not because of what you did 10 years ago. I love you for who you are now, for how you listen, for how you laugh, for how you look at life even though it has been hard on you. She swallowed. Part of her had been waiting for those words since she was a child, drawing a boy in a light suit on the home's wall. And another part still thought she did not deserve them. I love you too, Tiago, she finally said, her voice shaking. I loved you when you were just a shadow in my drawings. I loved you when I knew you were alive somewhere, and I love you now, with your eyes full of light and your fears on your shoulders. They stayed there as the afternoon fell over the square, hands intertwined. There was no dramatic kiss or background music, just two people who, after years of darkness, fear, escape, and guilt, dared at last to choose love. What neither of them knew was that life still had twists in store, and that the true ending of their story was not only a happy ending, it was an open invitation to everyone who had ever felt their pain was meaningless. Years went by. The city changed. Buildings rose. Trends came and went. But some things stayed the same. Every morning the doors of Luz de Lena Foundation opened to welcome families arriving with eyes full of fear and hope. Some came from poor neighborhoods, others from faraway towns. All of them found the same thing, an outstretched hand. Tiago became one of the most respected specialists in the country. He was not famous for interviews or awards, though he had those. He was known because he stayed longer than necessary by kids' beds, because he explained procedures over and over until parents understood, because he had never gotten used to that moment when a child opened their eyes after surgery and said, I can see, Mom. Lena, for her part, finished her psychology degree. She specialized in childhood trauma, but she never stopped being the warm-handed girl who sat on the floor to play with the kids. The media eventually got tired of searching for scandal angles. It turned out that a story of everyday love, of quiet work, of small miracles repeated again and again was not as handy for cheap drama. For those who truly needed hope, though, that story became a beacon. Tiago and Lena got married in a simple ceremony. There was no over-the-top luxury. There were simple flowers, foundation kids throwing petals down the aisle, laughter and tears from those who had seen them grow. Marcelo walked Lena down the aisle, all not as a businessman, not as a benefactor, but as someone who through mistakes and forgiveness had learned to love a girl he had once feared. Irene, heart full, hugged her daughter-in-law tightly. "Thank you," she whispered in her ear, "for coming into my son's life when no one else could reach him." Lena smiled. "I just showed up," she replied. "He did the rest." At the reception, Dario gave the most chaotic and honest toast of the night. "I wanted to say something elegant," he began. "But the truth is, I just want to say one thing. All of us here have seen that love that starts on a square bench can end up building hospitals, dining halls, and whole families. So if today you feel lost, look at these two and remember no darkness is final." The guests applauded. Tiago and Lena looked at each other, laughing through tears. In time, they had a daughter. They called her Alma. Not by accident. They wanted her name to always remind her that beyond eyes, skin, money, or titles, what truly defines a person is what cannot be seen. From a young age, Alma grew up running through the foundation's hallways, playing at checking dolls with a flashlight, sitting to color beside kids waiting for their appointment. One afternoon, when she was 6, she stopped in front of the plaque at the entrance. "Mom," she asked, tugging on Lena's hand, "why is it called Luz de Lena if you do not work with light bulbs?" Lena laughed. "No, honey," she replied. "This is a different kind of light. It is the light that turns on when someone stops feeling alone." "Like when kids come out of surgery and hug their parents?" Alma asked, very serious. "Exactly. That one," Lena said, looking at her tenderly. "That light." Tiago, who had been listening from the door, came over. "And it is also the light you bring," he added, touching the tip of her nose, "because every time you walk into a room, everyone smiles just a little more." Alma smiled like she had just won the greatest prize in the world. That same afternoon, the four of them went to the main square. The bench was still under the tree, like a silent guardian of stories. Marcelo, with more years on him now, joined them later, walking slowly. They gathered there, the 5 of them. Father, mother, son, daughter, grandfather. The plaque on the bench's backrest now had a slightly longer phrase. "Here a story of light began. May it never go out." Alma hopped up on the bench in one jump. "Is this where everything happened?" she asked, looking at her parents with eyes full of curiosity. Tiago nodded. "I was sitting here," he said, pointing to his side, "blind, angry at the world, convinced I would never see anything. And I was here," Lena added, "sitting on the other side, barefoot, in an old dress, convinced I had a mission but with no idea how to fulfill it." "And what did you do, Mom?" Alma asked. Lena looked at Tiago. "I asked him to trust me," she replied, "and my hands were shaking, but he did." Tiago took Lena Sepp's hand in his. "I had nothing to lose," he said, smiling. "I did not know it then, but that day was when I started to gain everything." Alma settled between them. "And what is my mission?" she asked, no malice, just a child's simple logic. Marcelo chuckled softly. "Your mission, little one," he said, stroking her hair, "is to learn to see like your mom and dad do, not just with your eyes, but with your heart, to see the people others ignore, to reach out when others look the other way." Alma thought about it for a second. "Sounds hard," she murmured. "It is," Tiago replied, "but I promise you will not do it alone. No one walks alone here ever again." A moment of silence followed. The sun was starting to go down, turning the square gold. People passed by. Kids' laughter filled the air. Vendors kept shouting their offers. The world still was not perfect, and never would be. There was still injustice, pain, poverty, eyes that could not see, hearts that felt empty. But also, in the middle of all that there was that bench, that tree, that family, that foundation, and the story of a girl with no shoes and a blind boy who had met in the least expected place, to remind the world that there are pains that become mission, wounds that turn into doors, mistakes that become starting points. Maybe now, as you listen to this story, you feel a bit like Tiago that day, trapped in your own darkness. Or maybe you are more like Lena, with a mission burning in your chest but afraid to step forward, thinking no one will believe in you. Either way, this story wants to leave you with something. The certainty that your pain does not define you forever. That your mistakes are not your final word. That even in your noisiest, loneliest square, someone can show up willing to take your hand and tell you just trust a little. And above all, the reminder that you can also be that person for someone else. That hand. That voice. That light. Before we go, we want to invite you to do something. Tell us in the comments which part of this story touched your heart the most. Was it the moment when Lena touched Tiago's eyes for the first time in the square? When she decided to stop running and stay at the foundation? When Marcelo knelt down to ask for forgiveness? Or maybe you saw yourself in Alma looking for your mission without having all the answers yet. Write your favorite moment, and, if you feel like it, tell us if you have ever felt a miracle in your life. It does not have to be something spectacular. Sometimes the miracle is just finding someone who really listens. If this story made you cry, gave you hope, or reminded you of someone you love, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here you will find more stories of love that is born in the dark and learns to walk in the light. Stories of ordinary people like you and me, who discover that the heart always has a second chance. And before you leave, stay a little longer. On screen we are leaving you another story, about someone who also thought their life was broken, and yet ended up turning their wounds into a path for others. I hope it hugs your soul too. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. And never forget this. Even if the world insists on filling you with shadows, there is always a bench, a tree, and a hand waiting for you somewhere. You just have to dare to believe the light is still there.